Hi, I'm State Representative Seth Grove. Welcome to another edition of Legislative Report. We're in for a treat. Normally you get to watch my shows maybe on the internet, YouTube. Most likely you've probably seen them on cable access TV. Today we're taking a look behind the scenes of White Rose Community Television, where you get to see numerous community events, township meetings, York County Commissioners meetings, York City meetings, school board meetings. They do a great job of providing public access to many government meetings, so keep you in touch of what's happening in everyday life here around York County. Today we have our guest, Steve Busch. He's the Director of Regional Partnerships with the City of York. Steve, thanks so much for opening your doors and letting us take a peek behind the scenes.
Yeah, well, welcome, Seth, to White Rose Community Television. It's an honor to have you here.
Let's start off with kind of an overview of White Rose Community TV. Kind of what's your mission, what's your goals, what are you looking to do with this great service you provide?
Well, we exist primarily because of a local franchise agreement that we made with the local cable provider. And we operate two channels on Comcast Cable, 16 and Channel 18. Channel 18 is our government education access channel, and Channel 16 is our public access channel, where we kind of let folks in the community express themselves in whatever way they want to. The mission of White Rose Community Television, of course, is to provide that service to our viewers and to promote and highlight the activities that occur in the City of York.
And obviously outside of that as well, as you pick up, Dover School Board meetings, your county commissioners, so you are, York County centric, definitely.
Well, I like to call it hyper-localized content because a lot of the stuff that we do doesn't really have any relevancy outside our community.
Yeah, which is important, very, very important. Can you give us a little history lesson about the station, kind of how you got your start and how you ended up here in your current location?
Yeah, I'm very proud of the new studio that we built. But we started in the spring of 1974. It's called YCAT, York Community Access Television. And the very first broadcast was from a truck that was located on Queen Street up near WSBA 43. Some of your viewers remember that, some of them won't. And it was cable cast. In other words, there was a tape player in there. There were actually 1-inch tapes in those days. And somebody would stick the tape in a tape player, wait the 20 to 30 minutes that it was on, pull that out, stick another tape in, and they broadcast a couple days a week, 6-7 hours a day. They moved, YCAT moved from there to the YMCA for a few months, and then they built a studio at York College, I guess it was in '75. They were there for a couple years. And then SESCOM was the cable provider, and they were a very generous and kind group of people. And they had what they called a least access channel. That was cable 4. And they would sell advertising on it to local folk, and they would do some community programming. And they let us move into their studio and share it with them. And they were there 25, 30 years. Then back in 2005, we renegotiated the franchise agreement with Susquehanna Communications and put some provisions in there to build a new studio, and that happened a few years ago.
Yeah, excellent. It's a beautiful studio. Obviously we'll get some footage of it moving forward. Most people never get to see behind the scenes of a television studio, so it's a neat trick. I know first time I did an interview, I walked in on a TV set, and it was nothing what I expected. You see the backdrop, and it's literally just a backdrop. So it's a very, very unique perspective. So funding for the program, you have your franchise agreement. Where else does funding come from to fund what you do, provide that public access?
Yeah, actually, the franchise fees that are charged to people who get cable TV services, it's not charged on the other services that are provided by the cable company, actually goes to the municipality that negotiated the franchise agreement. So our footprint covers about 55 of York County's 72 municipalities. And we only get funding from the City of York from the franchise fees, and then we get a small portion of that. The rest of our funding comes from the county commissioners make a significant contribution, and then we do ask for donations and have received some generous contributions, and are trying to encourage the producers of content to make a small stipend to support our activities. But there's 2 full-time staff persons, Cliff and myself, and we're city employees.
That's great. And obviously there'll be contact information at the end, so if you do want to make a donation to make sure public access TV stays vibrant here in the York community.
Well, thank you for that, but people could also donate content. If
Yeah.
somebody has something they want to say and they can provide me with the content, I'd be happy to play it on Channel 16.
Let's go right into that. Let's say I'm a community organization. Content as far as you'll have to provide your own video, and then you can just download it directly, get it to you DVD. How would a community organization get you content?
Great question. Interestingly, in the old days, we had tapes that we would stick into machines, and then DVDs became very popular, and people would mail me DVDs. But now, if you wanted to produce a regular show, and many people do, all you have to do is get a user ID and a password, configure the content file format that's relatively easy to do with editing software, and then we would give you a user ID and a password, and every week you could just upload your content. I'd give you a time slot and replace it with the next file. I would encourage anyone who's interested in creating a show, a TV show, that we could do that.
Yeah. And obviously there's certain rules and guidelines for public decency that would apply to that as well.
Kind of. Because it's a closed cable system and not a broadcast, it's not regulated in that same fashion. But I think that there are 7 bad words that you shouldn't be using.
Yeah.
You probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Nudity without content would go on late at night. But I've never run across that as a problem.
Yeah.
I haven't been provided with obscene material.
That's good.
So I kind of play stuff.
Yeah.
Good. What the community wants, I'll
Yeah. Good stuff. And I know you cover some, school board. I know Dover School Board uploads their stuff so you can watch. Do you know how many school districts out of the 16 in York County actually provide that kind of, just the one, just Dover School District is the only one that provides?
What is interesting, though, is that many of the suburban areas, school districts, have a tremendous AV program. And of course, that's evolving into other kinds of language to use. But media literacy is really important. In other words, being able to tell a story, a beginning and a middle and an end. So I've reached out to some of the school districts that have a structured, formalized program and have received some content, but not anything on a regular basis, because it's not part of the curriculum to create content that is arable.
Yeah.
So they'll have little projects to do and things like that, and sometimes I'll get 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah.
But I encourage them to do that.
So for individuals and groups, they can obviously upload and produce them. What kind of continual shows do you have? I know obviously you have Joe Live, you have a culture show. What kind of standard staple shows do you produce here for media content?
We talked about the early days of YCAT and public access television, and in those days the technology that was associated with creating content was very complicated. So they had training programs where you had to learn how to do that. You learn how to operate the camera, learn how to edit. I won't bore you with the process because it was quite laborious. And then you would have to volunteer for somebody else's show in order to be able to create a show. And now that the tools are more common, again, digital literacy is important. But in the old days, the people that were interested enough in creating content, had a message to deliver, were often faith-based, community-based, and then politics, for some reason, also motivated individuals to have strong views they wanted to share. And then the unique thing that we do, besides having somebody provide this external content and give it to me, is that we can broadcast live. And we have folks that have been coming in doing a live call-in show. You mentioned Joe Live.
Yeah.
I think it's 22 years for Joe.
Wow.
And he recently had some surgery and lost his leg, but he still comes in every Saturday to do his show. We have wrestlers who've been on the air about 6 years. They come in on Wednesdays from 6 to 7:30. I believe the Atheists have a show on Tuesdays, and so this interaction with the public on a live call-in show is something that we're uniquely positioned to do.
Yeah.
Some of the other shows that we have are faith-based, and they're very good. And then I can also, I've also added programming that I've gotten from other public access stations. One of my favorite, of course, is the horror-hosted shows, the old Elvira. So the horror movies are really bad. The Night of the Living Dead is actually very good, but the Night of the Living Dead, which was produced in Pittsburgh, but didn't have any copyright on it, The Blob and a bunch of other kinds of, The Brain That Wouldn't Die, and then they have these horror hosts that would talk about the shows and things. So tune in on Channel 18 every Friday night from 10 o'clock until 7 o'clock in the morning to watch some more horror hosted. The other thing is I like the old cartoons. So I try to get the older cartoons that are in the public domain and play those. Those are kind of interesting.
Looney Tunes.
Looney Tunes are copyrighted.
All right.
Now you got some Popeye and
Woody Woodpecker.
Betty Boop. Early Woody Woodpecker before he was Mel Blanc.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, you've seen some of those, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, me and my grandfather used to watch a lot of Popeye, Woody, Looney Tunes and stuff. So huge fan of the older cartoons.
Cool.
Getting my kids into them as well. They like Tom and Jerry a lot.
Tom and Jerry.
So yeah. Very good stuff. Very unique content. I mean, we were talking earlier just about horror movies, and we both have a liking for bad movies, bad horror movies in particular. So
but
it's very great.
The point is the community has this vehicle in which to express their ideas, whether it be through free speech, interaction with the public through a live call-in show, or saying, you know what, I really like old horror movies too. Let me collect some and give my commentary about them.
Yeah.
Let me do this with old cartoons and stuff like that.
So really, I mean, for the 21st century, what we're talking about with your public access television is, it's a politician on the soapbox. It used to literally mean a politician would flip over a soapbox, stand on top of it, and espout their beliefs and what they're rallying against. That has evolved in the 21st century today of TV, of public access television, that allows that same issue to enhance. But now you're kind of, if anybody would do that today, they'd be like, what's this crazy person doing on the corner talking, versus being on a television show, which is kind of the more modern media of the soapbox.
That's a very good point. Of course, the soapbox are made out of cardboard now too, so you couldn't be standing on it. Yeah. The other thing, though, is how we get our information delivered to us, and having the availability of hyper-localized content that serves a community is very important. And we're losing that with the consolidation of media ownership. I believe the only local radio station that's owned is the one that the Revolution's just bought.
Yeah.
And so our radio stations, our television stations, our newspapers, the decisions about what the content is and how much resources are allocated to that content are made in other places than in York. But everything that's done here is made by people in York, and they have influence over the content.
So if I'm a resident of any other school district besides Dover, if I want those meetings publicly televised like Dover is, I need to go talk to my superintendent, my school board, and say, you should tape this, you need to get this content on there.
Absolutely.
Provide more public access, more public availability, because people do watch it.
And it allows them in the intimacy of their home to participate in the process of governing.
Yes.
There isn't a council meeting that goes by, for example, that they're not getting texts from people who are watching at the time.
Yeah.
The other thing that happens is not everybody has Comcast cable. And if you do have Comcast cable, you may not have Channel 16 and Channel 18 being White Rose Community Television because of the way in which Comcast has acquired the cable systems in York and Adams County. So a few years ago, we decided to stream all of our channels. So you can watch both Channel 16 and Channel 18 on your computer. A few years ago, that technology changed so that people are watching content on their iPhone, their iPads, their Android phones, and we now stream that content to those devices. And all you have to do is go to wrct.tv and you can click on the link to watch what's being broadcast now. The other thing that we do is the municipal meetings and some content that we create are available as video on demand files. So even if you lived, as a matter of fact, some of our live call-in shows, the wrestlers interact with folk out of Philadelphia and New York, and they may call in because they're going to be wrestling in the area that week, and they interact with the folks. So our video on demand files, our streaming, and the technology that we use to maintain our infrastructure is state of the art.
Yeah, and internet has provided a whole new medium on top of that. You know, I at home we have, you know, direct TV, we don't have cable, and we were going over just the federal regulations on that and how just the entire media market has changed, where it's, you know, just not cable anymore. There's multiple providers, and even cable is doing video internet. You know, it's kind of a conglomerate system where you, as a consumer, can just buy one-stop shop where you don't need cable, then a telephone, internet, and then a cell phone on top of that. So it's so unique.
You want me to comment on that?
Absolutely.
I mean, because we're talking about regulations. Here I am talking to the government guy about regulations, but that's what created some of these issues. Is this convergence of technology has created an opportunity for information. I mean, it's almost an information explosion. But there's still a digital divide that exists that I don't think is being addressed. We don't all have broadband, for example. But what's interesting is how things are changing and how rapidly they're changing. And from my point of view, it's very important that when we make these choices, that we make sure that the choices are available to everyone. That's the reason why everything that I do, I try to make sure that we have it on the internet. We have video on demand files. We do the best job we can with the linear TV programming that we do, so that people want to come back and they want to watch White Rose Community Television. Yeah.
What do you think policymakers should do to help promote public access TV moving forward? Are you worried about the narrowing, kind of like the monopoly system that we're seeing in cable, being able to open up satellite TV providers for public access TV? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a very interesting question. I think that it's going to affect this concept called net neutrality, because some of the criticisms that's being leveled against some of the larger corporations that are controlling the pipe, for example, are levied because the pipe was built by public-private partnerships and now is perhaps, some think, being used to privatize and limit the access of this new technology to everyone. I'm really not sure that a local community can have any impact on that. I believe that's going to be federal decisions about whether or not the mergers occur and net neutrality exists. But what we can do is we can ensure that we have the ability to have this hyper-localized content, that we have public access, and that we use it, that we take those stories we want to tell and we make sure that they're getting told.
So if I wanted to pitch a show to you, how would I go about doing that?
Well,
contact you?
First thing you do is call me.
All right.
All right, and then we'll swap email addresses.
All right.
All right. So we have a real good line of communication. There's no misunderstanding. Second thing is, what's a story you want to tell? All right. So folks say, all right, I want a live call-in show and I want to do it Sundays at 3 o'clock. I say, okay, I work Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, Friday nights, Saturday nights. Now you want me to work Sunday. All right. Why? All right. So you really have to have a good reason for me to come in on Sunday for you to have a live call-in show. The city requires that we ask for some minor contributions for the new shows. The old legacy shows, of course, we do those because we always have done those. I suggest to you that perhaps if you created the content off-site, or if I help you create the content yourself, that we could do this on a regular basis. Every week you'd give me a new show, and that would be like $25 a week. I'd put your show in here, give you a time slot, play you 3 to 4 times a week, and every week you give me a new show. We could do that. All right. If you need me to go out and do it, and of course I'd be happy to, then you're going to have to pay a little bit for that. The cost of the technology and the gear and the staff to go out and do it. And people do that. You know, if you have the art space, for example, they had a arts and culture conference, and they asked us to cover the event so they could have a historical record and share some of the great ideas for folks that couldn't get to the conference, and we were happy to do that. And it was a modest cost to do those kinds of things.
Interesting. Well, here we are. We're going to take a quick look at what an actual TV studio looks like. Most people see them on the news, or they don't see the whole perspective of what it actually looks like to be in a live studio. So if you can kind of go over cameras, green screen, everything we're looking at.
Yeah, well, we have to have different sets for different shows so that there's a look and feel and things like that. And because we don't have much storage, we decided to go with a green screen where we can create a virtual set. Somebody could be in a spaceship, for example, and actually have a show. So we built this green screen, and that little line that you can see without the virtual set in place disappears. You can't see it. That was because the material wasn't big enough. That's actually a green Velcro material that we used for a green screen. And of course curtains, and we hang sets. Over here's some studio cameras that we feed from the switcher out here, and we can display a clip on them, or we can display different kinds of things. Artwork to create a sense of a set. But the essential ingredient in a room is that we build a room inside a room so that it's relatively quiet, which is kind of neat. Our cameras are all high definition cameras. We've got 2 with teleprompters on it, and then we have 3 robotically controlled cameras, and then way up in the ceiling we have a little tiny thing that just kind of shows the whole set, which sometimes you switch in. That makes it look kind of interesting. Yeah. All the lights are DMX controllable, which means that we can be in another room to dim or turn on a different light or get a different effect. And of course there's an electronic sound board that allows us to mic every individual. When we have a band, of course you try to mic the singers and the guitars and the drums and things like that all separately and mix them together, just like in a recording studio.
Very cool. All right, let's go check out some of the other technology here and get a tour of the rest of the place. We just took a look at where everything's made. This is where it gets sent out to the general public to view, which is a pretty neat technological advancement. So Steve, take it over.
Sure, thanks, Seth. I just wanted to show you that this is the 2 channels that we operate. This is channel 16 and channel 18. It's what we send to Comcast, and this is a return feed. We look to see that, make sure that everything is working properly. In the old days, we used to use tapes and DVD players to broadcast the content, but nowadays we use a file server that plays out and selects different inputs for playout on both the channels. Before I get to that, I wanted to point this out. This is a Raspberry Pi, and it's a small device, costs about $40, and we've repurposed it to re-encode some signals so that we can go out on a remote site, send back a file over the internet to our file server, and then this converts it into content that we can play out. We're still experimenting with that. I love the idea. We're going to do more of that. But over here's our file servers. Everything that you see being played out on channel 18 is stored on this file server. Everything that's played out on channel 16 is stored on this file server. And then producers who create content regularly get a user ID and password and FTPs their files into this server, and then we schedule them for playout. This is our fiber connections throughout the community. We've got 17 locations that we can broadcast from, and we've got 4 that's set up permanently. County commissioners' meetings are broadcast live through this fiber connection. The council meetings, we broadcast parades and other events downtown live through our fiber network. Below that is a device that we use to, it's like a mini head end, and it takes our signals and through a fiber connection sends them up to Comcast head end, and then is rebroadcast and made available as channel 18 and channel 16 on the Comcast cable network. Now on the other side, I want to show you one of the innovations that we started about 5 years ago, and that is that all of our channels are streamed live to the internet. Here you see what's being broadcast on 18, and this is what's being broadcast on 16, our community calendar. It's sent up to a hosted service in Atlanta, and then the links on our webpage, wrct.tv, and you can watch our channels whether you have Comcast or not. A few years ago, we converted it to a file format that you can watch it now on your Android, your iPad, and your iPhone. And you can see there's lots of wires and connections that we maintain. The server stack over there is a little noisy. This is the heart of the operation at WRCT. Okay, this is real interesting. Here we have 2 volunteers who are working on our editing suite in order to create content for broadcast on White Rose Community Television. This is a former Potter laureate, Carla Christopher, and her assistant, and they're editing an episode of Culture and Me. Over here's this virtual switcher that we were talking about, and there's green screens and different inputs, the teleprompter, the soundboard, and things like that.
This allows you to drop in whatever background to that green screen to
The virtual sets.
make whoever, ride the rocket ship or be in a carousel or whatever,
Well, thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it. And you're welcome anytime, because you may have a message to send once in a while, all right?
Yeah. Definitely. I appreciate your time, Steve. Thanks for what you do on behalf of the entire York County community, providing access to a huge number of people, not only government access, but the general public, on doing a great job. Keep it up, and obviously we'll love to catch your shows on channel 16 and 18, and obviously over the internet as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. Please catch us on the next episode of Legislative Report. Again, I'm State Representative Seth Grove. If you have any questions on what you've seen today, contact information will be provided at the end of the show.